Hello, students. Welcome to another edition of Mrs. Gregorio's California Math Notes. Today we are covering Chapter 2, Lesson 5 on percent of change. Please follow along on page 143. Today we're going to learn how to find the percent of change, and we're also going to learn how to find the percent of error. So to begin, I would like you to open to page 143. I need you to write 2 predictions about this lesson under what you'll learn. Then I want you to do the real world link. And for this one, we have a video that I'd like you to watch before you do the real world link. The video can be found in your assignments under this website. And the website is connected.mcgrawhill.com. So please click on the website, watch the video. It's only a couple minutes. And then I want you to answer questions 1 through 3 on page 143. Pause the video and take a moment to work on that. Okay, now beginning on page 144, we have some key concepts for this lesson. And the first vocabulary word is percent of change. And percent of change is a ratio, and it compares the change in the quantity to the original amount. And the equation can be shown like this. Percent of change is equal to the amount of change divided by the original amount. And so that's how we can find the percent. So let's take a look at some of our vocabulary. The first vocabulary word is percent of change, and that's what we just talked about. So I'd like you to take these notes in your book in the work zone on page 144. Percent of change is the amount of change, and to find the amount of change, you subtract. You find the difference. So it's the amount of change divided by the original amount that you start with. Okay, and that gives you the percent of change. There's my notes there. Now, the second vocabulary word is percent of increase. Now, the percent of increase is when you have an amount that you start with and that quantity increases or it goes up. So to find this, you find the amount of increase. So it's the amount of increase divided by the original amount that you start with. And the amount of decrease or percent of decrease is very similar, except for this time you start with an amount and it goes down. So the amount that you originally start with actually decreases. So to do this, you find the amount of decrease. And once again, you divide it by the original amount you start with. And percent of error is going to be on page 145, and we're going to discuss that on a separate slide in just a moment. Example 1 on page 144 reads, find the percent of change in the cost of gasoline from 1970 to 2010. Round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. So looking at the two prices here, we have 1970 and gas cost $1.30 then. 30 years later in 2010, actually 40 years later, pardon me, 40 years later, gas went up to $2.95. That's quite an increase. So we need to find the percent of increase because the original amount has, it looks like, more than doubled. So to find the percent of increase is the change of increase. So to find the change, we take the difference of the new price minus the original price. When you subtract that, you get $1.65. That's how much the price has increased. Divide the increase by the original amount, 1.65 divided by $1.30, And these are dollars, so I can include the dollar sign. When you divide that, you get 1.27, and that's our decimal. Now, don't forget, you need to change the decimal to a percent. To do that, you multiply the decimal times 100, move it 2 places to the right, and you get the percent of increase is 127% increase. And that's all you need to do for number 1. So let's go on and continue with example 2. Example 2 says, Yosef bought a DVD recorder for $280. Now it is on sale for $220. Find the percent of change in the price and round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. So looking at the original price, it started at $280, but now it went down because it's on sale. Now it only costs $220. So to find the percent of decrease, because the price went down, we need to find the difference. So to find the difference, we know the original price was $280, and we subtract it from the new price, which is $220. When you subtract those, you get a difference of $60. So that's how much the price went down. Now that you know the percent of decrease, or the amount of decrease, now we can find the percent. So that is a difference of $60 divided by the original amount, which was $280. So $60 difference divided by 280. When you use your calculator, type in 60 divided by 280, and you should get approximately 0.21. Now remember, this is our decimal. And in order to change your decimal to a percent, you need to multiply it by 100 or move that decimal 2 places to the right, and that gives you 21% decrease. So the amount of decrease was 21%. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try A and B on page 145. In order to get credit, you have to show your work for this. Pause the video now and work on these 2 problems. Okay, continuing on to page 145. Now we're going to cover our key concept on percent of error. The percent error is a ratio that compares the inaccuracy of an estimate, or the amount of error, to the actual amount. So the equation we use for percent of error is percent of error equals the amount of error that you made divided by the original amount, or the actual amount. Excuse me. So let's take a look at the gumballs in this jar. If we were just to take a quick estimate, I would guess that there are about 300 gumballs in the jar. However, if I actually took the time to count them all, I would know that 400 is the actual amount. So to find the percent error for this problem, we need to look at the difference between the actual amount and my guess. So 400 minus 300 is a difference of 100. That's how many gumballs I was off by. So we take the amount of error, which is 100, and you divide it by the actual amount, which is 400. When you simplify that, you get 0.25 as a decimal, or 25%. So I made a 25% error. Let's go on and look at example 3 now. This is on page 146. It says, Ahmed wants to practice free throws. He estimates the difference from the free throw line to the hoop, and he marks it with chalk. Ahmed's estimate was 13.5 feet. The actual distance should be 15 feet. So we need to find the percent error. So to find the percent error, first of all, we need to find the amount of error. To do that, we need to subtract. 15 feet was the actual. This is what it should be. But yet his estimate was 13.5. So I'm going to find the difference, and I always put the larger number first. 15 minus 13.5 is a difference of 1.5 feet. You take the amount of error and you divide it by the actual correct amount. So, percent of error is 1.5 feet in air divided by 15 feet, which is the actual amount of distance it was. When you divide this, you may use a calculator if you need to. If not, you will know that 1.5 divided by 15 is 0.1. Now that's our decimal, so you need to change the decimal to the percent by multiplying it times 100, or moving the decimal 2 places to the right, put a placeholder there, and you get 10% error. If you have any questions, I'd like you to write down your questions and be prepared to ask those questions in class. Excuse me. Then I want you to try C on page 146, and I need you to show your work for credit. So go ahead and pause the video and continue to work those out. Last slide. For Thursday, we will do the guided practice together in class. I need you to bring your charged Chromebook with you and your workbook. I'll see you then. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.